On May 18, 1991, Soviet cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev launched to space for what was supposed to be a 5-month mission. He went up as a citizen of the Soviet Union. He would come back to a country that no longer existed. For 311 days, he orbited Earth, watching his country collapse beneath him. And there was nothing he could do, because nobody could bring him home. This is the true story of the last Soviet citizen, stranded 250 miles above a world that no longer needed him. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the beginning. March 1991. Sergei Krikalev was 32 years old, an experienced cosmonaut. This was his second trip to space. His mission? 6 months aboard Mir, the Soviet space station, the pride of the USSR. Mir had been in orbit since 1986. It was supposed to demonstrate Soviet superiority in space. But by 1991, cracks were showing. Not in the station, in the Soviet Union itself. The economy was collapsing. Republics were declaring independence. The Union was dying. But Krikalev had a job to do. On May 18th, he and his crew launched from Kazakhstan. The launch was perfect. 8 minutes later, they were in orbit. 2 days later, they docked with Mir. The mission had begun. The crew was 3 cosmonauts: Krikalev, Anatoly Artsebarsky, and British astronaut Helen Sharman. Helen Sharman would return after 8 days. Krikalev and Artsebarsky were scheduled for 5 months. Everything was going according to plan. The experiments, the maintenance, the routine. But 250 miles below, the Soviet Union was falling apart. In June, Boris Yeltsin was elected president of Russia. He didn't believe in the Soviet system. By August, hardline Soviets attempted a coup. They failed. Above all this chaos, Krikalev watched through a small window, helpless. He called home when he could. The communication sessions were brief. The news was always worse. His wife was on Earth, his daughter, his home, and it was all slipping away. In October, his scheduled return date arrived, but the Soyuz that was supposed to bring him home never came. The Soviet space program was running out of money. Missions were being canceled. Kazakhstan, where the launch site was located, declared independence. Now it was a foreign country. Russia couldn't just launch whenever it wanted. It needed permission and money. Krikalev's crewmate, Artsebarsky, was brought home in October, but there was only room for one. They needed someone to stay and keep Mir operational. Krikalev volunteered. He thought it would be a few extra weeks, maybe a month. On October 10th, Artsebarsky undocked and headed home. Krikalev watched him go. He was now alone on Mir, 250 miles above Earth, with no idea when he would come home. Below him, the Soviet Union was dying, and he had a front-row seat to the end of an empire. 2 weeks passed, then a month, then 2 months. No rescue mission came. A new crew did arrive in October, 2 cosmonauts, but they weren't there to bring him home. They were there to join him. Now 3 men were stuck on a station designed for 2. The new cosmonauts were Alexander Volkov and Sergei Krikalev's friend, flight engineer Anatoly Solovyov. They brought supplies, food, water, oxygen, but no date for Krikalev's return. On December 25, 1991, something historic happened. The Soviet Union officially ceased to exist. Mikhail Gorbachev resigned. The red flag came down. 70 years of Soviet history ended. Krikalev watched it on a small television aboard Mir. His country had died while he was in orbit. He launched from the Soviet Union, There was no Soviet Union to return to. The space program was now Russian, but Russia was bankrupt. It couldn't afford to run Mir. Mission Control told him the truth. They didn't have money for a rescue mission. He might be up there for a very long time. Krikalev didn't panic. He didn't demand to come home. He just kept working. Life on Mir became a routine of survival. Exercise 2 hours a day to prevent muscle loss. Maintenance on systems that were breaking down constantly. Mir was old. It was falling apart.
The air filtration system failed. They had to fix it or suffocate. The water recycling system broke. They rationed every drop. Food supplies were running low. Each meal was carefully calculated. Krikalev lost weight. His muscles atrophied despite the exercise. His body was breaking down. But the psychological toll was worse. The isolation, the uncertainty, the endless waiting. He called his wife when he could. The conversations were painful. She was struggling too. In Russia, inflation was out of control. Her salary was worthless. She didn't know how to pay rent. Krikalev's salary hadn't been paid in months. The space agency had no money. He was risking his life in space, and his family was suffering on Earth for a country that didn't exist anymore. But he never complained. Russian media called him the last Soviet. He wore it with quiet dignity. By early 1992, the world knew about Krikalev. His story made international news. NASA offered to help. The European Space Agency offered money. But Russian pride got in the way. Russia didn't want to admit it couldn't take care of its own cosmonaut. So Krikalev stayed in orbit. January passed, then February. By March, he had been in space for 10 months. His body was deteriorating. Doctors on the ground were getting worried. Bone density was dropping. His heart was weakening. Much longer and the damage would be permanent. Finally, in March 1992, Russia scraped together enough money for a Soyuz mission. After 311 days in space, Sergei Krikalev was finally coming home. But the man who would return to Earth was not the same man who left it. On March 25, 1992, Krikalev prepared to leave Mir for the last time. He took one last look through the window at the planet that had changed completely while he watched. Alexander Volkov and Klaus Dietrich Flade, a German astronaut, would return with him. The Soyuz undocked from Mir. After 311 days, Krikalev was finally heading home. The descent took 3 hours. 3 hours to fall back to a world he no longer recognized. His body had been in zero gravity for almost a year. Every muscle screamed as gravity returned. His heart, weakened from months in space, struggled to pump blood against Earth's pull. At 8:51 a.m., the Soyuz parachute deployed. They were moments from landing. The capsule slammed into the Kazakhstan steppe, the same country he'd launched from, but now it was independent. The hatch opened. For the first time in 311 days, Sergei Krikalev breathed Earth's air. He couldn't stand. His legs, weakened from months of atrophy, couldn't support his weight. They carried him to a chair. He sat there, under the open sky, feeling gravity for the first time in nearly a year. The world he returned to was completely different. The Soviet Union was gone. His salary, paid in rubles that were now almost worthless. 10 months of work, nearly nothing. The space program he'd served was struggling to survive. Many cosmonauts were leaving for better opportunities. But Krikalev didn't leave. Despite everything, he stayed loyal to the program. His body took months to recover. Physical therapy, constant medical monitoring. His bone density had dropped by 20%. His muscles had atrophied severely. Doctors told him he might never fully recover. The damage from 311 days in space was profound. But the psychological scars were harder to measure. What does it do to a person being abandoned like that?
In interviews, he was diplomatic. He never blamed anyone, never showed anger. When asked how he felt being forgotten, he simply said, "I was doing my job." Most people would have been bitter, angry, broken. Krikalev just moved forward.
In 1994, just 2 years after his ordeal, he volunteered to go back to space. He would eventually fly 6 space missions, spending a total of 803 days in orbit. For years, he held the record for most time spent in space by any human being. He became a hero of Russia, a legend in the space community, a symbol of dedication. In 2005, he flew to the International Space Station, working alongside American astronauts. The Cold War was over. The walls had fallen. Space had brought former enemies together. And Krikalev, the man who was abandoned by one country and welcomed by many, was part of making it happen. Today, he's retired from active spaceflight, but his story remains one of the most remarkable in space history. He was abandoned, forgotten, left to survive on a dying space station above a collapsing empire, and he never gave up. Because sometimes the greatest heroism isn't about glory, it's about simply doing your job when no one is watching. Sergei Krikalev, the last Soviet citizen, and one of humanity's greatest space explorers. If this story moved you, subscribe to Cosmir Tales. We tell the human stories behind cosmic achievements. What other space hero should we cover next? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, keep looking up.